God saved ancient Israel out of Egypt by the blood of the Lamb and called them to be a holy people and a kingdom of priests. God has saved Christians by the blood of Jesus and called them to be a holy nation and a royal priesthood. In this presentation, we will see how the tabernacle that God gave in the wilderness is a picture of heaven and how that holy life can be possible for Christians today. Just how do these items play a role in our Christian experience today? Grab a pen, your Bible, sit down and relax, and watch as we study this subject out. I know that time is precious, so I encourage you to increase the play speed from 1.5 to 2x. Tabernacle Part 2, Be ye holy, for I am holy. 2-minute summary quickly. We remember it has the outer courtyard and then these items in the courtyard, and then we have the holy and the most holy place, the two holy places in the tabernacle itself, under the tent there. But we said last time, where was Jesus baptized? I say at the Laver, you might say the wilderness, but I would say it was there. But where would that have been? Was it in heaven or on earth? Earth. He was tempted straight after baptism. Jesus was led into the wilderness, right? So he was tempted in the wilderness. Heaven or earth? Earth. Jesus was crucified at the altar of sacrifice. That momentous act, the greatest event of our earth's history, took place there. The greatest act of love ever shown in the universe. Big deal. He was crucified on this evil planet, on earth. And he was resurrected at the Laver. We know that from Romans 6. So those things took place on earth. And so there's a summary that was for 3.5 years, and for the 30 years before that, Christ lived a righteous, perfect life. But all of that took place on earth. And then, remember the key word for the sanctuary is movement. Movement. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. It's about movement. And so what happened after the resurrection? Christ was on earth for 40 days and then went into heaven. And then Pentecost, he started his ministry as the heavenly high priest, inaugurated, and the heavenly tabernacles now started to operate for the salvation, because now we have a high priest. We never had a high priest in the heavenly tabernacle until that time, Pentecost. And that'll be the topic of the next in these series, okay, is what I've just mentioned now. So I didn't cover a lot of details. So remember, we looked in Hebrews 8, verses 1 and 2. Paul summarizes the first 7 chapters of Hebrews, and he says, now this is the main thing, is that we now have a heavenly high priest. There wasn't a heavenly high priest until after Pentecost, or until Pentecost. So now we have Jesus Christ in the heavenly ministry. And so today we're going to look at how Israel went through the steps of salvation, symbolically speaking, going through the sanctuary. Okay, symbolically speaking, ancient Israel, as they moved through. So let's have a look at that. It starts as the story, they were slaves in Egypt, and they cried out to the Lord for deliverance, yes? And God heard their cry, and he remembered the covenant that he'd made with Abraham. And so they come from slavery, and there was that covenant, and God said, he remembered the covenant he made with Abraham there in Exodus 2:24. And so God sent a deliverer, right? And Pharaoh, who was keeping Israel slaves, symbol of Satan, he was keeping Israel slaves. He says, no, I'm not letting them go. But they were set free by the blood. Only by the blood were they set free. All right? And so when we come to the door, they had to select a lamb. So the next item that they would come to would then be the altar of sacrifice. And this again involves the lamb. That was the door, okay? And it says here, they shall eat of the flesh on that night roasted in fire with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water. So it was very specific how they had to cook it. It had to be over a fire, roasted in the fire. It says it twice there. And its head and its entrails, the entire thing, complete. And you shall let none of it remain until morning. And what does remain until the morning, you shall burn it with fire. And the substitutional lamb was totally consumed. Nothing was left. If it was left, it had to be burnt up. So it was consumed in the mouth, or it was burnt. But there was no remains of this animal. It's very important. They were set free, and as you know the story, Paul tells us symbolically, so it's not my opinion this. Moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, and were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. So the next stage from the altar of sacrifice, Israel, once they had partaken of the Passover and they'd eaten the flesh of this lamb, they went on their journey. They came out of Egypt, and they were baptized symbolically in the water, which is exactly the next symbol in the sanctuary, right? Is the laver of washing. That was a washing bowl. And then from the washing bowl, moving into the holy places. The holy place and then the most holy place. There were the two, right? And so inside the holy place and the most holy place, everything was gold. Gold, except for the curtain. But everything else was made from pure gold or from gold-plated wood, right? Why? Why would it have to be of gold? Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, tell the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, what's the word that? If you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then, is that conditional or unconditional? Thank you. If then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. A kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Well, that's interesting, because now we're going into the holy place. Who was allowed in the holy place? Only priests. Only priests were allowed into the holy. And so God is saying, I will make you, if you obey my voice and my commands, I will make you priests, which means then you can come into my holy place, right? Which pictures and foreshadows heaven. So we go into the holy place, and there on the right-hand side we have the table of showbread. Now we do know that God fed the Israelites, did he not? He fed them bread from heaven. We also know that he gave them water in the desert from the rock, which foreshadowed Jesus Christ. We read that in 1 Corinthians 10, right? So on this table of showbread, there are how many stacks of bread? 12. 2 stacks, 12 loaves, 12 pieces of bread. So God, there's many symbols that we can extract, many truths we can get from that table of showbread. But one for sure is that God provides for his people. There's one for each of the 12 tribes. He provides for his people. Also, if we read here, he says, but if you indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, Moses is speaking, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. And then he says, so you shall serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and water. God will take care of you. And that's what he did. He sustained his people through the desert. And I do know that that drink offering there was the grape juice. It resembled the bread and the wine being the body and the blood of Jesus Christ. I understand that. But we do also know that when Christ was pierced, what flowed out of him? was blood and water. Not blood mixed with water, it was blood and water. Two things flowed out of him. The idea definitely is that God provides for his people. That's what we know for sure. Then we carry on reading. And the Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. This is after the golden calf experience. He said, yeah, now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, that I may consume. There's that word again, that substitutional sacrifice who took the sin of the repentant was consumed. Now God says here, leave me that I may consume these rebellious people, and I will make of you, Moses, a great nation. And Moses pleaded with the Lord and said, Lord, why does your wrath burn against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with a great power and with a mighty hand? And so what do you call this? This is intercession. This is interceding prayer on behalf of someone else. So Moses was praying on behalf of this sinful bunch of people, right? He was interceding on their behalf. And we read here again in Exodus 32, yet now if you will forgive their sin, great. But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book, which you have written. That's incredible intercession, wouldn't you agree? Moses was prepared to give up his life for the people. Maybe you're thinking about foreshadows here, right? That's why they were baptized into Moses, is what Paul was telling us just now. And so, this is the altar of incense. They experienced the intercession. Can you see that? The incense, the smoke, and the wafting aroma of the incense would go over into the most holy place and went to intercede. Now, remember the rebellion of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram? The earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up and their houses and all the men that appertained to Korah and their goods. And there came a fire from the Lord and consumed 250 men that offered incense. This was the rebellion where they were not happy with their lot. They were restricted to working in the courtyard, and yet they wanted to go into the holy place and offer incense. There was only a specific priesthood that was allowed to do that, and they wanted that, and then they took incense, and they said, oh, no, we can also do this. And Moses tried to reason with them, and they wouldn't, and so this is what happened. So God does this amazing event. He takes care of this rebellion, but not completely. Listen here. But on the morrow, all the congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, saying, you have killed the people of the Lord. Yeah, the earth opens up and they said, no, you did this, Moses. Wow. Anyway, so here's more rebellion. So what happens as a result of this? We read here in Numbers 16:45. Get you up among this congregation that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell on their faces. And Moses said to Aaron, take a censer and put fire therein. So Moses tells Aaron to take a censer, put fire therein from off the altar, and put on incense and go quickly unto the congregation and make atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord. The plague has begun. So God took care of this rebellion. People died there. Korah, the earth closed up again. And they continued with their rebellion. And so people started dying. Right? The plague had begun. So Aaron, now who was Aaron? He was Moses' brother. He was the high priest, picture of Christ. So Aaron took as Moses commanded and ran into the midst of the congregation, and behold, the plague was begun among the people, and he put on incense and made atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed. All right, so there we have again the intercession that Israel experienced. You can see that now. So again, that is the incense that comes off the altar of incense in the holy place. Everybody see that? And also the censer. It was like a miniature altar of incense on a chain, right? A portable one. So this is the intercession of the high priest. They, as a nation, experienced this. Would you agree? Let's carry on. Then it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines. So he didn't take them straight as the crow flies, right? Along the coast and up to Israel. He took, and which would be the highway of the Philistines. He didn't take them that route. God led his people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. Took them more southeast as such. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. To go by day and night. And he did not take the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So this was a 24/7 cloud or fire, cloud, fire. Day and night, day and night. And God led the way. He led the way. All right, let's read here. Then the Lord, and it's also important, until recently I didn't see this. So maybe there's somebody here who doesn't either. Then the Lord came down in the pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they went forth. So the cloud, God was in the pillar of fire, and God was in the pillar of cloud. It wasn't just a normal old H2O cloud. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, and that, okay, so what's happening here, this was after the 10 spies, that's right. So again, remember the 10 spies, or 12 spies, and 10 were unfaithful, or shall we say, had no faith, lacked faith, and they started a rebellion, and they eventually wanted to stone Moses and Joshua and Caleb. And again, this is Moses now, and saying, God, you can't destroy the people. They will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, and that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before them in the pillar of cloud by day and in the pillar of fire by night. So that's just backing up what we're saying, that God was in that pillar, and he leads them by that. And as we said last time, anyone witnessing this would know that this group of people has a very unique God. And so the leading by that fire and the pillar was God leading his people through the wilderness for 40 years. And so we can say that the 7-branch candlestick, the menorah, was God's leading through the wilderness. And Isaiah, the other aspect of the candlestick as well is this here. God says, I will give you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth. Again, this was Israel, but we know that Israel failed, and so the true Israel is Jesus Christ, right? And so he was to fulfill this, because ancient Israel failed. But they were to be a light to the Gentiles, and they were to be missionaries to the Middle East and to the ends of the earth. But they failed. So what about now ancient Israel moving to the most holy place, symbolically speaking? Just as a preamble, very quickly, there's a lot of things in the Old Testament about the heart change. It's not just legalism, right? We're going to read in Leviticus. God said, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor if it's needed, right? Correct your brother as such, because we are my brother's keeper. Yes? But you should not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you should love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. And again in Deuteronomy 4, but from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. And again here in Deuteronomy 6, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. So there's a lot to talk about heart. Also, there's many verses we could have thrown in about being circumcised of heart. It's in the Old Testament. So remember when they went to Sinai? Now this is important because the 10 Commandments are given twice, at the beginning of the 40 years and at the end of the 40 years, right? Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. That's what it means. And so just before they went into the promised land and before Moses died, he went through the law again. And he gives them in Deuteronomy 5. So in Deuteronomy 6, we read there, and these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. So the 10 Commandments in the previous chapter should be in our hearts. That's from the Old Testament. And then, remember, Moses died, and then Joshua led into the promised land. But here we read in Joshua 1:8, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, and you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and be of good courage. Do not be afraid, do not be dismayed, for the Lord is with you wherever you go. This book of the law, when they're going into the promised land, then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, pass through the camp and command the people, saying, prepare yourselves, provisions for yourselves. Within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan and go to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And so this is the end goal. This is the destination through the sanctuary, is the, what did they call that place? What do we call that place where they went to? We call it the promised land, Canaan, but we also call it what? The Holy Land. Do we not? Yeah. And all those that rebelled died in the wilderness. They didn't make the destination. Okay, so those are the steps of ancient Israel, and I had the 13 steps there, but I've cut it out because of the length of the sermon. So you can go through those steps. It's very interesting. So now we've looked at ancient Israel. Well, that's very nice. What about you and I today in the 21st century? Is this even important to you and I?